The Lord be with you. And in this morning's assembly, we're going to be thinking a little bit about the feast of Passover or Pesach. You'll see behind me a picture of slaves. Maybe you can see the chains around their ankles. They're all having to work very, very hard, carrying heavy things and doing all sorts of jobs. So I want you to use your imaginations to close your eyes, to sit comfortably in your chair, get your feet flat on the ground, put your hands quietly in your lap, nothing in them. Relax for a moment and take a deep breath. Imagination is a wonderful thing and it can take us anywhere. So let's go back to a time long, long ago. Imagine that you are a slave. You work for a cruel master who makes you work when you feel you can't work anymore. And even when you finish your day's work, you don't feel safe, even at home. Those around you treat you as a second-class citizen. You have to practice your religion in secret. Your friends and family are beaten if they don't do the right thing. You desperately want to get out of this country where you're held prisoner. You want to get to the promised land. You desperately want to feel hope. But when you try to think what it might be like when things are better, you don't want to hope too much just in case it doesn't come true. Life is hard and harsh and difficult. Now when you're ready, open your eyes again. How did it make you feel when you thought about being a slave? You might like to talk to one another later, but I'm guessing it made you feel trapped, lonely, upset, sad, angry, maybe all those things and more besides. I could be talking about any period of history. I could be talking about black slaves in America, people imprisoned for their beliefs. But I'm going to talk to you particularly about the Israelites who were slaves in Egypt. Around this time of year, March, April, Jews celebrate one of their key festivals, which is called Passover or Pesach, and it recalls the story of Moses and how he led the Israelites to freedom from the slavery and persecution they experienced in Egypt. Moses is a key figure for the Jews, and this is why they celebrate the festival of Passover. They recall when Moses came to Egypt with a task from God. He was to go to Pharaoh and say, "Let my people go." Pharaoh was very proud. He wanted his slaves to build his palaces and all the things that Egypt needed to be a great nation, and he refused. And we hear how God sent plagues on Pharaoh to persuade him to change his mind. The river turned to blood. They had a plague of locusts, of darkness, of boils, and of other things. And still, Pharaoh would not let the Israelites go. Still, he mistreated them and kept them as slaves. And after 9 plagues, we read how a final one was sent, surely one that would make even Pharaoh change his mind. The angel of death was to pass through the land, and every firstborn male child would die. The Israelites were told to kill a young lamb and paint its blood over the door frames of their houses, and so when the angel of death came, he would know to pass over their houses, and only the Egyptians would be killed. So the Israelites did as they were instructed, and the angel passed over their homes. But all the firstborn baby boys of the Egyptians were killed, including the son of Pharaoh. Now, finally, having lost his child, Pharaoh told the Israelites to go, to leave Egypt. And you can read that story in the book of Exodus in the Bible. The word Exodus means evacuation or flight. And the Israelites were in such a hurry to leave that they really didn't have time to let the bread they prepared for the next day rise. And so they took unleavened flat bread with them for provisions. And each year at the Jewish festival of Passover, the Jews recall the passing over of the angel of death, the liberation of the Jews from their slavery in Egypt. In Israel, they mark a full 8 days of festivities. In non-Jewish countries, it's only 2 days, the first and the last. But on the first night of the festival, the Jews come together as a family and have a very important meal. And it's called the Seder meal. Seder means order, and the ceremonies are done in a particular order. And they use special plates and cutlery that they keep especially for Passover. And they retell the story of Moses leading the people out of Egypt, the story of the Exodus. And as the story of each of the 10 plagues is told, a drop of wine is spilt to remind the Jews that their freedom was tinged with sadness at the suffering of the Egyptians. And children are very important in the festivities, and it's the youngest child who asks 4 special questions during that Seder meal. So I've brought along Rolo to help us today. Hopefully you will see him. There he is, and he's going to help us ask the questions. Why do we eat unleavened bread? We eat unleavened bread or matzo, Rolo, to remember the Exodus, when the Israelites fled Egypt with the dough to which they'd not yet added yeast. But why do we eat bitter herbs? Bitter herbs, usually horseradish, are included in the meal to represent the bitterness of slavery. Why do we dip our food in liquid? At the beginning of the meal, a piece of potato is dipped in salt water to recall the tears that the Jews shed when they were slaves. Why do we eat in a reclining position? In ancient times, people who were free reclined on sofas while they ate. Today, often cushions are placed on chairs to symbolize freedom and relaxation in contrast to slavery. Each of the components of that special meal are very important. And there's a special Seder plate which contains all the different things. If you'll bear with me a minute, I'm going to change the background here, and I'm going to step out of the way so you can see a little bit better. On the plate, you will normally find matzo, unleavened bread, which is eaten symbolically 3 times during the meal. A bone of lamb or lamb shank to represent the lamb that was sacrificed. An egg, also representing sacrifice, but also with another symbolism. Eggs, of course, become harder when they're cooked, and the egg symbolizes the Jews' determination not to abandon their beliefs under oppression from the Egyptians. You've got greenery there, often lettuce, which represents new life. Salt water in the middle to represent a slave's tears. 4 cups of wine, which aren't visible here, recalling the 4 times God promised freedom to the Israelites. Charoset, which is like a sticky paste made up of apples, nuts, cinnamon and wine, which represents the mortar used by the Israelites to build the palaces of Egypt. And an extra cup of wine is often placed on the table, and the door is left open for Elijah. Jews believe that the prophet Elijah will reappear to announce the coming of the Messiah, and that he'll do so on the feast of Pesach. And the story they tell at this Seder meal ends with the words, "Next year in Jerusalem, next year we will be free." It's a very important festival for the Jewish faith, because it not only recalls the flight from Egypt, the Exodus, but it reminds the Jews of the many times when they've been persecuted in the past, and it reminds them that God will free them from their chains. I'm going to say a short prayer now, and if you'd like to make it your own, please say Amen at the end. When I feel that I am trapped, give me space. When I feel that I am persecuted, give me courage. When I feel despair, give me hope. When I need someone to look up to, send me a leader. When I feel there is no one else to help me, remind me that you are there. Amen.